If you're a busy dad that wants to build muscle, lose body fat, and stay athletic, today I'm going to be breaking down a 3-day hybrid split training series that I give to my guys. It's simple and it works. I'm gonna break it all down for you. What the muscle work looks like, what the conditioning peaks looks like. And most guys think that they need to train 5 to 6 days a week to see results. Quite frankly, that's just not true. If you have the structure, if you have the intensity, if you have the focus and the plan that's aligned with your goals, you can make serious gains and serious progress in just 3 days a week. In fact, I would even argue that 3 days is a lot more obtainable because it's sustainable. You're less likely to have burnout. You're less likely to skip out on workout or feeling like it's totally dominating your life. Now, controversial to what everything I just said, I am a big believer that if you can shrink down what you're doing on a daily basis and make this more a part of your lifestyle, instead of doing 45 minutes 3 days a week, I would even argue that doing 15 to 20 minutes on a day-to-day basis, as far as like optimizing your health, would be better for you. But for the sake of this video, I'm gonna break down a 3-day hybrid training series you can follow. And I will get into the logistics, and I will get into the details, but I want to give you a high-level overview. Day 1, we are focused on, at least in this training block, as I've mentioned in prior, and I will break down what the detail is of these 3 workouts in the description and breaking it down here. But during this particular block, which I've mentioned in the previous videos, we follow a 6-week training block. In 6 weeks, we're doing progressive overload. And so on day 1, 2, and 3, it's not always chest day, it's not always leg day, but this particular series, day 1 is primarily posterior chain with the CNS activator with a longer conditioning piece. We'll talk about what that means here in a second. Day 2 is a primarily focused chest day with a high intensity interval piece. And day 3 is primarily a leg day with a short, small sprint style piece. So here's what I want you to notice. On every single day, we have a workout. Now that we're a little bit older, we need to prime the body with warm-up. And I'm not just talking about walking on the treadmill. For example, on day 1, we're trying to strengthen your back because your knees, your back, your shoulders are busted up. So here, we're gonna focus on the Jefferson curl to get you strong in that position, followed by a single arm lat pull down to get activation in our lats, because we're gonna be using our lats a lot. The same reason why 2 people can have the exact same workout. One person is targeting the muscle properly because they're activating the muscle. The other person is just moving through and can't feel anything. So since it's day 1, I like to start off with what I call a CNS spike, your central nervous system, which is like a big wake-up call. It's a shock to the system. We're trying to get that fight or flight so that we can stimulate adrenaline on purpose. And we'll do that by doing some type of high intensity. In this case, I've got an EMOM. On minute 1, we're doing burpees, pull-ups, and dips. On minute 2, we're doing a 30-second hand plank shoulder tap. We're doing a 30-second whatever. So if you're not familiar with an EMOM means every minute on the minute. I click start, you do 30 seconds of work, then you rest for 30 seconds. At the top of the next minute, I've got a bike piece. We're gonna bike 14 calories or whatever would be appropriate for you. And every round, we're gonna increase the pace. So for example, if 14 calories takes you 30 seconds, you're gonna have 30 seconds of rest. Takes you 40 seconds, you're gonna have 20 seconds of rest. And that bike is intentionally trying to shock the system. Then we go into the actual meat of the work. We're going into deadlifts and we're going into pull-ups, 4 sets of 10 of each. And then we're going into, this is our primary mover, so our compound movement, big muscle groups. Then we're going into supportive muscle groups. We're going into things like meadow rows. We're going into single arm rows. We're trying to isolate with unilateral loading of the actual lats. And then we get into curls and variations of, so in this particular case, we had hammer curls followed by waiter curls where we're grabbing the kettlebell, and then straight into a suitcase curl. So we're still getting a little bit of that unilateral work, but we're working the back and the obliques because we want everything to be balanced, because our training looks different and we don't want to get injured. So that's why unilateral work is important. When it comes to the conditioning piece, we want the conditioning to still allow to work the same muscle groups. So for example, we've got a 7-minute AMRAP. AMRAP means as many reps or rounds as possible. We start off with a 500-meter row. So the conditioning pieces are all going to be aligned with what muscle groups we were doing. So we're able to accumulate more volume. So the rowing is biceps, lats, we're hinging. And then we go straight into, with the remaining time, chin-ups. So we're accumulating a lot of volume in chin-ups with our biceps, with our lats and all that. And kettlebell clean. So that hinging position, like we were from deadlifting, and also that pulling position for our biceps. And the reps would be 2, 4, 6, 8, as long as you can until that clock hits 7 minutes, rest, and then you will repeat. Once you've done 3 sets, we have an optional, or you could choose one or the other. a zone 2 run. Now, throughout the training block, like I talked about, the zone 2 work has been slowly climbing over time because we're working on progressive overload, not only in our strength piece, but also in our conditioning piece. Now again, when we're working on different training blocks, there's times where we might have a leg focus day the next day, but this particular block, we're going primarily posterior chain, primarily pushing, so chest work. So on our pushing day, we've got 20 face pulls where we're trying to activate our rear delt, and we've got 5 windmills where we're trying to open up T-spine rotation so we can get our upper back to move and we can get our spine to move so we can get into a good position once we begin to get into our compound lift section, which in this series we are focusing on alternating, like I talked about yesterday. 1 week is going to be high reps, 1 week is going to be low reps, and we flip-flop between those as we progress. On this one, we're going 5 sets of a 1 bench plus 1 quarter, back down and up is 1 rep, all with time under tension. Now, as you're older, to avoid injury, one of the great ways that you still build muscle, limit your chance of injury, is by getting a massive amount of time under tension. So it's not going to allow you to do as much weight, but you're still going to get the benefits and the effects of muscle growth. So we're doing that. Think about here, 4 sets of 10 incline dumbbell chest press with a tempo, a 30-second break straight into a 10 rep incline chest fly. And when you're trying to build muscle, it is all about the stretch. So make sure you're getting deep into that position, deep into your pressing so that you can work that in range, because that's where the muscle growth takes place. That's our compound movements. Then we're getting into, just like over here, some of the supportive groups. Now we're getting into dips and deficit push-ups. Now I want to talk about these deficit push-ups because by this point in the workout, you're going to be totally trash. You're not going to be able to do a lot of push-ups. Now we're going deficit because we're already further in the series, as I keep mentioning, but we're also trying to get a massive stretch in the chest because that's how we can grow. And I want you to use this model. So if we did, say for example, 7 push-ups and then you're gassed, I don't want you to take a break and then shake it out. I want you to do 7 push-ups normal, and I want you to go control down, drop to the knee, push up, control down, drop to the knee, push up. That's still going to allow you to get the negative where your whole body is going down. Once you fatigue from that, then just go straight onto the knees and finish them out. So you probably, depending on your level of fatigue, you still might not get to 20, but you go through that little series, push-ups, negative plus knee, then you shake it out, and then you got to get back at the push-up. If I've lost you there, comment down below and I'll break it down, but that's how I optimize time under tension, and it'll destroy your chest in a good way. Then after that, all the pushing horizontally, then we'll go into high repetition chest fly just to get a lot of blood flow through that, and then get into some accessory work with isolating our triceps, some core work and sit-ups and things like that. So yesterday we had a longer piece. We had the 25-minute zone 2 run. Today, day 2 is very challenging. And again, we utilize the hybrid training to still use the same muscle groups to accumulate a lot of volume, not a lot of complex movements like we had in CrossFit where we're doing snatches for high reps and thrusters for high reps and all that stuff. However, today it looks like this. Every minute on the minute, bike 10 calories on minute 1, 10 push-ups on minute 2, bike 12 calories on minute 3, 12 dips. So you will alternate between push-ups and dips, push-ups, dips, push-ups, dips, and the bike will stay the same. But for each of it, you'll go 10, 10, 12, 12, 14, 14, 16, 16, 18, 18, 20, 20, and then back down. So it starts off extremely simple, and it gets very, very challenging at the end. Of course, you'll need to adjust the calories on the bike and stuff like that for you, but it should be extremely hard because the intervals get challenging as the pyramid goes up. But mentally, once you get here, you got to stay strong right through here because you know you're on the down slope. Most people, once it gets hard, they back off. If you want to feel like an athlete again, you're not going to get hurt riding a bike and cranking out some push-ups. Challenge yourself. Go for it. So yesterday we had the longer duration, the aerobic work. This is super high intensity. In this series, we're going into day 3 where we are focused on our legs, and we're getting kicked off with supine hip flexors. So we want to have strong hip flexors so that we can move well, so that we can run fast, we can run long, coupled with having good, strong quads, targeting our VMO with the cyclist squats. And as I mentioned, a good way to stay safe is time under tension, which is also great for building muscle. And we will do that with our squat series. So 4 sets of 6 reps, and we're going 2 seconds down, 4 second hold in the bottom, and then you'll explode up. And that makes you, at the beginning of a training series, we do that mad tempo and that owning the bottom of the position to really, how do I describe it? To really make you feel confident in that position so that you've got structure, you work on the stability before we start to increase weight over the week. So owning the bottom of the position is huge for us. Then we get into our unilateral work and actually starting to accumulate volume. So we go 3 sets of a a 24 drop lunge, so super high repetition, working on single leg strength, straight into high volume 12 leg press. So we go 24 and 12. Then after we light up the quads, then we're gonna focus primarily on getting the glutes to fire. Having strong glutes, having strong hips is gonna correlate to less back pain, being a stronger runner, a faster runner. And then we're targeting, as we've done in all of these, the supporting muscle groups. So now we'll get into the obliques, we'll get into the groin, doing things like Copenhagen, side planks, and essentially focusing on every aspect of supporting muscle groups for running. Now, we had a long day, we had an interval day. Now we want to have something kind of in the middle. So now we're going 3 sets of a 3-minute block of a short duration work period. So for today's, it was 10 box jumps, 10 lateral lunges, and then here's where we had to really work hard. We had, I think it was a 300 or 400 meter row. Don't quote me on that, I can't remember. In the remaining, so you're trying to get right here, in the remaining 3 minutes, so you got to hustle through this. So the remaining 3 minutes, you do as many sit-ups as you can, rest for 2 minutes, and you repeat that. Now, right after 3 sets, we are going into a running series of 9 sets, 60-second run, 15-second rest, and just like this running series, this started off with a progression of, I think it might have been like run for 90, rest for 90, then run for 90, rest for 75, run for 90, rest for 60, etc. So each component, whether it's strength or whether it's conditioning, needs to be progressively challenging so that it gets harder and harder and harder, forcing you to adapt and forcing you to get stronger and fitter. Now, if you truly are only committing to 3 days of gym work, I would say I am a big fan of exercising on a daily basis. So maybe for you that means going for a certain amount of steps each day, or you're committing to rucking, or you're committing to doing mobility work. If you're trying to get fit and you're trying to get strong and you're trying to get healthy, you do gotta be active on a daily basis. You gotta have standards for yourself. You gotta have non-negotiables that you do for yourself every day. And I talk about standards a lot, and I like to think of having a standard for yourself as kind of like thermostat in your home. Let's just use a body fat, for example. If your body fat is 25%, you have accepted that that's your standard. And you'll stay with me here for a second. If your body fat is 15%, and that's my standard for myself, if you think of it like a thermostat, like what happens when your thermostat is set at 70 degrees and it gets below 70? Well, the heat kicks on. Well, if you start to slip from your standard and you don't meet your standards anymore, you gotta turn up the heat, boys, and you gotta crank it up. And you gotta dial in on your strength, you gotta dial in on your conditioning, you gotta dial in on what you're doing. So you gotta raise the standards for yourself, is my point. Now, I have talked quite a few times about these different 6 to 8 week training blocks, and I want you to have an idea of what I'm talking about here and why they're important. So a couple of different reasons of outside of progressive overload. Well, for one, when you add in variation, it keeps things exciting. It makes you look forward to training because you're not going in there and every Monday for the next 3 to 5 years you're doing the same thing. So having some variety keeps things exciting. Having some skills that you're working on keeps things exciting. You know, I talked about this in other videos, but we were focusing on, is it focusing on volume? Are we focusing on strength? Are we focusing on power? Are we focusing on building muscle? What does that actually look like? Are we doing high rep or are we doing low rep? You know, all of the program progressions, like I've talked about on week 1, we're doing a progression that goes here. On week 2 is a different set of exercises, a different set of progressions, a different set of skills compared to week A versus B. And then on week 3, we go back to week A, but now everything is a little bit harder. Week 4 is here the same, but it's a little bit harder. That way it's not 6 weeks of doing A. It's kind of 2 different things that are aligned. So it's like, all right, if we're working out your chest on Monday, well, that's on week 1. Well, week 2, we're still gonna work out your chest on Monday, but it's a different set of skills and different set of progressions. This keeps training fun because when things get boring, you just get burnt out. It also helps you avoid injuries. It helps you avoid plateau. So that, fellas, gives you at least an idea of what a 3-day hybrid split training series can look like. I'll put the workout down in the description. But that gives you an idea of what your intensity should look like, how you can slip in running, how you can split in the different muscle groups. So if you haven't already, I'm in the middle of a 30-day YouTube sprint challenge that I'm doing for myself. This is 1 video a day for the next 30 days, and we're on video 3. So I'm covering every single topic under hybrid training that I can think of. So if you've got other questions, other things that you want me to cover, make sure to drop them in the comments below as I go through this series so I can make sure that I can answer them. Hybrid training program, check that out in the description. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.